Are you struggling with trust issues after experiences of abuse or betrayal in your relationships? You're going to want to watch this video. I'm going to help you better understand trust issues, describe 3 common ways that people use to cope with trust issues that are actually counterproductive and make things worse, and give you some strategies so you can build more trusting relationships in the future, even if you've experienced abuse and betrayal in the past. My name's Ruth Ann. I'm a clinical psychologist and an expert in relationships and issues of narcissism. Now, if you are struggling with trust issues, my heart really goes out to you because as a human being, you're a social animal and you are driven to connect with other people and you have a basic need for relationships and closeness. That's a human thing. And struggling with trust issues is very difficult. It means that your emotional needs for closeness and intimacy probably haven't been met and probably aren't being met. If you've experienced abuse or betrayal or exploitation in your close relationships, especially early on in life, then you may develop a very strong sense that other people can't be trusted, that they're potentially abusive, that they're dangerous or threatening to you in some way. Now, I work from a mainly cognitive behavioral therapy or schema therapy perspective. And so I would see these core formative experiences as really informing the ways that you see the world. It's giving you a schema or a core belief that people can't be trusted, that they're threatening and dangerous. And that schema is going to be made up of all of the memories that you have of being betrayed or abused. It's going to have all of the emotions connected with that, all of the beliefs that you've developed about yourself and other people through that. And that forms the template through which you experience new relationships and through which you interpret the world around you. Now, in schema therapy, we think about 3 key ways that people cope with these strong experiences. And these are avoidance, surrender, and overcompensation. Now, the intention behind these strategies is probably to keep you safe. And let's acknowledge that these may have been survival strategies that have actually got you through situations which were very dangerous and in which you didn't have a lot of power. Then you may have employed these strategies as a means to keep yourself safe. The problem is that these strategies may be helpful to get you through dangerous situations, but they are not the skills that you need to build reciprocal, close, and trusting relationships. So, with that in mind, be compassionate to yourself if you have adopted these strategies and acknowledge the ways that they may have been helpful to you in some situations. Don't judge yourself or beat yourself up for realizing that some of the ways that you cope with your mistrust and sense of danger in the world may actually be counterproductive and be maintaining your sense of threat and danger. Now, if you tend to adopt avoidance strategies, it can look like avoiding social situations. It can look like avoiding getting too close to people, pushing people away if they get too close or too intimate with you. And that's really about not wanting to put yourself in a situation where you may be at risk. Now, this means you don't get close to people, and that comes with a terrible cost because you end up isolated and lonely. And being isolated and lonely can actually be a risk factor for getting into a future abusive situation. Particularly if you're someone who then finds being isolated and lonely, you want to look for that one special person who may be able to help you, the one person you can trust. And that can be a real risk factor. If you've been in an emotionally abusive situation, you may notice that that's actually part of the pattern that you're in, that you think that finally you found the one person you can trust. And it turns out that actually they're not a very trustworthy person at all. So there are 2 negative consequences to avoidance in relationships. One, you don't actually give yourself the experience of getting close enough to other people so you can strengthen your sense that other people can be trusted and build confidence in yourself and in other people and in other relationships. And the loneliness and isolation of avoiding getting close to people can be a risk factor for getting in future abusive situations. Now, if you tend towards surrender strategies, that means that you are surrendering to the idea that people are threatening, that people are dangerous. If you're in a more surrendering mode, you may not even recognize when you're being hurt or abused. You may tolerate things that really shouldn't be tolerated. You may find that you become very placating and pleasing, tiptoeing around someone, trying to keep them happy so you don't get hurt. And very often, this is a strategy that has been forged in a relationship where you're in grave danger and you don't have a lot of power. And perhaps tiptoeing around someone and being quite compliant is actually a strategy to keep you safe. If you're someone who tends to be in a surrendering mode, you probably aren't going to develop a sense of your agency or your ability to influence your relationships. You may find that you stay in situations where you're being hurt and abused. It may be difficult for you to be assertive, to communicate clearly what you think and feel, to assert yourself in a relationship. And of course, that means that you're much more likely to stay in situations where you're being hurt. And that just is going to strengthen and reinforce the idea that other people are dangerous and that other people are unsafe. Overcompensating coping strategies can take many forms. You may be quite suspicious and paranoid. You may become quite controlling of a partner, always wanting to know where they are so they don't betray you or lie to you. Or you may be very quick to accuse your partner of being deliberately hurtful or abusing you and become overly reactive during arguments. You may be quick to assume bad intentions and react very quickly, very negatively in situations where there's some conflict. And this can mean that your relationships end up being quite antagonistic and filled with conflict and resentment, and you don't actually develop confidence in your and other people's ability to resolve conflict in a calmer and more collaborative way. Now, of course, it's common that you may engage in all three types of coping at different times. You may be someone who generally tends towards avoidance, but when faced with someone getting close, you may become more compliant or perhaps more overcompensating. If you want to nurture new relationship patterns and trust in your future relationship, I think it's really important to start acknowledging where your distrust and your sense of threat has come from and the experiences that you've had. Now, the idea of nurturing more trusting relationships should not be to convince you that you're wrong and that you should trust everyone or that you don't have good reasons for your anxiety and your sense of threat. But maybe what you want to do is acknowledge that these are the experiences that you've had and that you haven't had experience where you can trust people, where you can build closeness and intimacy. And that's a safe and okay thing to do. And what you want to do is not let your mistrust and your anxiety and sense of threat be in charge. You kind of want to take a step back and you get in charge as a kind of healthier grown up so you can begin to nurture new experiences in your relationship that actually strengthen your ability to trust other people and also to trust yourself to exercise good judgment and discernment, to trust yourself to be assertive, to trust yourself to have better conflict resolution strategies so that you can actually engage in more collaborative means of resolving conflict. Now, this is challenging work, and it's really helpful to take good care of yourself as you do it. If you have physical or mental health problems, seek professional help. And just in general, try to take good care of yourself. Try to eat well and sleep well. Have a nice, gentle routine because all of this is good for just giving yourself a good foundation from which to make changes. The ways that you cope with the sense of threat and the sense of mistrust in other people may have become problematic. The problem is that these can feel familiar and they can feel comfortable and they can feel safe, but they're very limiting. They restrict your relationships. They keep your world small. They deny you the experiences that you need to actually build trust in your relationships. So a big part of tackling mistrust in your relationships is to have a sense of expanding, of taking risks, of having courage, and of welcoming the challenge and some of the discomfort that comes along with that. welcoming it with a sense of compassion for yourself, that this is a challenge and it's difficult, welcoming it as a new experience, even if it's uncomfortable, and being very intentional about how you are in your relationships so you can see some of the changes that you want to make. As you have these new experiences, you can start to build your confidence in yourself, build your confidence that you can get close to people, that you can exercise discernment, that you can assert your boundaries, that other people can be trusted. Not everyone can be trusted, but some people can be trusted. You can have trusting relationships. You can get close to people. You can resolve conflict in a more collaborative and calm way, and you can build closeness and intimacy in your relationships. So that takes time, and you're going to need to have lots of experience to really build up a sense of confidence in the relationships where you can have trust and feel safe and feel close to another human being. Now, if you tend towards avoidance strategies, you can start by looking at all the ways that you avoid, maybe quite subtle ways that you avoid. How do you push people away? How do you keep them at a distance? And as you do that, then you can start to experiment with dropping some of those behaviors. That can look different for different people. It may mean just being open to engaging more social conversations. It may mean talking more with your colleagues at work, for example, or saying hello to your neighbor. Or if you do find that a friendship is growing and you're getting closer to someone, not withdrawing. Or maybe you disclose something a little more personal as you get to know someone. As you do that, treat it as an experiment that you are just wanting to see what happens. Now, you're going to have to change lots of behaviors and try lots of new things, because what you're really trying to do is giving yourself lots of different relational experiences. Now, they're not all going to go amazingly. You may even find that there are some people who demonstrate to you that they're not trustworthy. But hopefully, what you do is you actually expand and develop your experiences of relationships that are friendly, that are warm, that are respectful, that get gradually closer. And it starts to build up a real sense of community around you, where you have relationships with different degrees of closeness, different qualities of closeness. And you really build a rich relational life. Now, in Western societies, I think we put way too much emphasis on our romantic relationships. And I would suggest to you that if you're struggling with mistrust in your relationships, that starting with friendships and starting with community is a better place to start than a romantic relationship, because romantic relationships tend to be all or nothing. They also tend to be more intense. And so building the community around you first and allowing that to give you the opportunity to intentionally change some of your relational behaviors and patterns is really, really helpful. And what that hopefully does is, if you allow yourself to have new experiences and you view them with a sense not of suspicion, but of curiosity, just observing what happens, hopefully it begins to expand your sense of how close you can be with people, how you can build different kinds of relationships, different qualities of trust, different degrees of trust with different people. And this is incredibly valuable if and when you decide you do want to pursue a new romantic relationship. Because in having a community around you and having a rich relational life that isn't dependent on one romantic partner, that can actually hugely reduce a sense of loneliness and isolation that often comes if you struggle with trust issues. If you have a community around you, if you have a rich relational life where you have friendships and you don't have that sense of loneliness and that sense of desperation, that's very protective. That can stop you having that drive from that sense of loneliness that you just really want that special someone. It means you may find that you're much more discerning when you meet new people, that you are more able to take things gradually and slowly. And if people in your community know you well, and you have some people who you really do trust and you are closer to, they can actually be a really valuable sounding board for you. If you're entering a new relationship, you can introduce your potential new partner to them. That gives you the experience of seeing, what is this person like in a group? What is this person like with my family and my friends? And your family and friends, if they care about you and they know you well, can be such a helpful reality check. Because if you find that you're getting very, very anxious, they may be able to help you recognize that perhaps there are old fears at bay and that your anxiety isn't about the current situation. It may be rooted in your past experiences. Or they may say, I think you may be overlooking some red flags here. There may be some reasons to be concerned about this person. And I'm not saying your community are always right or that they should make the decisions for you, but they can be a helpful source of support and sounding board as you navigate potentially more challenging relationships. And if you do find yourself in another relationship where you're being hurt, having a community around you can also be very helpful in supporting you and helping you to keep safe and get out of that relationship if you need to. Now, I hope that never happens. I really do. But if it does happen, the support of your community can be so, so vital. Now, if you tend towards more surrendering strategies, difficulties in saying no to people, becoming very compliant, not expressing yourself, not sharing your thoughts and feelings, not asking for the things that you want or you need in your relationships, then I think it's so helpful to learn and practice assertiveness skills. Because what you really want to do is give yourself the experience of having agency in your relationship, of keeping yourself safe, of being proactive in your relationships. Now, you can start again very small. You don't have to start big. One of my favorite things to suggest to people is that they learn to ask for things in very low stakes situations. So if you're ordering in a restaurant, you can ask for some modifications to a menu item, for example. Or if you don't like the food, you can send it back and give feedback. If you're someone who tends to be very compliant and surrendering and keeps yourself quiet, this can feel quite excruciating, but it can be a low stakes environment in which to practice some of your assertiveness skills and to really build a sense of your own agency. And then you can begin to expand by sharing what you really think and feel with the people close to you, or by saying no to things if you want to say no, or by asking for things that you want or you need. So, and this can be small. This can be, for example, telling your friends what movie you'd like to watch, or asking someone if they'd like to meet up with you on a Saturday afternoon, for example, or simply saying to someone, I don't really like this song on the radio. It doesn't mean that you have to ask everyone to go along with what you want or be demanding, but just having the experience of sharing what you think and feel, asking for what you want, being willing to say no if you want to say no, and just observe with curiosity how people respond. Now, not everyone is going to respond in the same way. And you may find there are people who push back, who don't like your boundaries. But you may also find that there are people who are interested in what you have to say, who are respectful of your no, who want to be accommodating to you, who will gladly take your feelings and your wishes into consideration. It will strengthen your belief and your confidence in yourself, in your ability to express yourself, your ability to say what you'd like, to ask for what you need, to say no, to hold boundaries if you need to hold boundaries. And it will also strengthen your confidence that there are people in this world who will be quite receptive to you, who will respect your boundaries, who will be interested in what you have to say, and who will be glad to help give you what you want and need in your relationship with them. So, again, it's just about intentionally giving yourself lots and lots of new experiences that really build up your sense of trust in yourself and in other people around you. Now, if you recognize your behavior in the kind of overcompensating strategies, I think this is super important to just take a step back and remember that the overcompensating strategy is probably a survival mechanism. It's probably a way that you've developed to try to keep you safe. And it may have actually kept you safe in difficult circumstances, in dangerous circumstances. But it's not going to be the strategy that is going to help you nurture trusting and more reciprocal relationships. So do honor that overcompensator. Do respect where it's come from, but also be willing to stand up to yourself and be willing to say, you know what? I care about myself. I deserve to have relationships which are reciprocal, which are calm, where I resolve conflict. And so I want to take charge. I don't want my overcompensating mode that's very defensive or very angry or very suspicious, very accusatory to be in charge. I want to be in charge as a healthy grown up who deeply cares about myself. And then your challenge is to observe when your overcompensating mode begins to come out, to recognize it's happening and to take a step back and to begin to ask the question, is my overcompensating strategy overreacting here? Is there another way to see this situation? And to begin to practice questioning your immediate thoughts and feelings, recognizing when you're overreacting, and this allows you the opportunity to perhaps respond differently to someone that you're close to. You may actually be able to share what you're thinking and feeling with them if that's an appropriate thing to do for that relationship. And you can really practice what it is to talk about things that are difficult, to resolve conflict calmly and peacefully. And again, just build up your confidence in your relationships, in your ability to handle conflict, in other people's ability to handle conflict in ways that are calm and don't end up with anyone getting hurt. Now, as you tackle all of these strategies, as you build your social connections, as you strengthen your ability to be a good advocate for yourself, as you also learn how to regulate your intense emotions and to engage in conflict resolution more peacefully, hopefully, what you're going to do is give yourself lots and lots of new experiences that help you trust and have confidence that it is possible for you to have trusting relationships with other people. And that doesn't mean deluding yourself that everyone is safe, because a big part of overcoming trust issues is also trusting yourself to be appropriately assertive and to take care of yourself and to take action to keep you safe when you need to. I hope this video has been helpful and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So please do share them in the comments. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me. I look forward to seeing you next time. And in the meantime, take good care.